You should be writing your novel to one reader, not to a group of people you think will love your novel. Welcome to the Julia Manta channel. For Just Meeting, I am Julia Manta, a women's fiction author. And today we're going to be writing about your audience, finding your audience. Now, if you're writing to a demographic or a type of reader you think will love your novel, what's going to end up happening is you will write a novel that is so broad that it's not going to capture anybody's attention. So let me tell you a story. When I first started writing, I wrote for myself because I had no idea who was going to like my type of novel. I know that I liked my novel, but I didn't know who else was going to like it. So I wrote to myself. I wrote the type of books that I would want to read and that I thought would interest other people, but I really didn't know. I didn't know my reader because I hadn't done any research to find out who my reader was. So even though it was good, right? Because I'm writing something that I love and something that I'm interested in, and so I had a lot of passion for it, I still had no idea if I was going to be able to sell this book to anyone else. So, and it was great for practice too, because I made all my mistakes at the beginning, right? I wrote things that I later, as I went back and read, I thought, well, no, that's not, it's not fitting in the genre, or whatever other mistakes that, you typically newbie writers make. But the problem is that eventually you have to move away from that. You have to say, okay, I'm no longer writing for myself. This has been a lot of fun, but I need to find out who is interested in this type of novel. And so what I'm going to share with you today are three ways that you can find your novel. Now, the way that I ended up finding my reader is almost like by a trial and error. So I wrote my first romance, and it just went out into the world. But as I continued to write and I started to meet people and I started to get feedback from readers and people that were telling me what they liked and what they didn't like, I started to narrow down who that reader is for me. And then I actually met my ideal reader. I thought, okay, this is the person that I want to write to, because this is the person who understands what I'm writing. What I found out is what she likes, and I found out because she told me, right? What she enjoyed, what she liked about it, what parts were exciting for her. So once you start writing and you meet the person that enjoys your books, it's a lot easier to narrow down who this ideal reader is for you, who is your audience. But what if you don't have that yet? What if you haven't yet published a book, or you haven't written anything yet, you haven't shared it with anybody? So I'm going to tell you today 3 things that you can do to find out who is this audience, who's the audience that's going to be interested in what you are writing. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to suggest is that if you haven't already, join some kind of writer group, and preferably a writer group that has a critique group attached to it. So I did do this at the very beginning, and it did help a lot. I was able to see what other romance writers, because that's what I was writing at the time, was romance, and I still am. I mean, I'm writing women's fiction, and it includes a lot of romance. But anyhow, so this group had a critique. So we had the regular writers group, but then we also had a section that was a critique group, and the critique group would get together, I think it was once a month, and we would share and read each other's work. And so it was very helpful for me to see what other writers liked and what they didn't like and what they thought should be changed, because this gave me I started to narrow down what my readers liked. Now, another thing that I found out by doing this is that not every romance reader is going to have the same, not every romance writer is going to have the same reader. So in this critique group, there were people that wrote fantasy romance. There were other people that wrote suspense romance. I was writing contemporary romance. So our readership is going to be slightly different. So I was narrowing down my reader, but it wasn't quite, they weren't my ideal readers at all. But it was helpful. So that's my first suggestion, is to find a critique group that can start reading, start giving you some feedback on what you're writing. The second thing that I want you to do is to go to writers and readers conferences. Readers conferences would actually be a little bit better. but both are helpful because readers and writers, I mean, we're all, even writers were readers, right? But in readers conferences, when I started going to those type of conferences, I learned who the readers were. I found out what they liked. I was able to meet these readers. I was able to sit down with readers that were reading the type of books that I was writing. So I got to see things like, well, things that are important to a point. Okay, so for example, what were their age groups? So there are some demographic things that are important. So what are their ages, where, and then what part of the country did they live in? Now, those things, like I said, are not the most important thing because readers are everywhere. They're not just going to be in one part of the country. But it started to clarify. So what we're trying to do here is not narrow down, that I'm only going to write to people that live in Montana, for example, right? I want to write to everybody that lives people that live everywhere. However, I'm starting to narrow down, like, who are these people? What do they like? Who are the people that like contemporary romance compared to the people who like suspense romance? So I started to see minor little differences. Okay, so before we go on to number 3, if you are interested in writing a book and you haven't started yet, you need to start. So before you can find your audience, you have to start. So down below in the description section, I've included a link that you can click on, and that'll take you to get a free framework that I created just to get people started. So just get those juices flowing and get in your mind, get the ideas out of your mind and onto the computer. Okay, so do that before you leave this video today. Okay, so the third thing that I'm going to suggest is that you join groups on any of the social media groups that you belong to. So there will be groups of readers. So I've gone and joined groups of readers. And why? Because I get to hear, read, listen, right, to what it is that they like. So again, if I want to narrow down who my ideal reader is, who is that one person that I want to write to, I need to meet them, right? I need to start meeting these people. And so in these groups, it's really great because people talk about it. I read this book and I really liked it. Or I read this other author and I hated it. I hated this part of it. I didn't like the way that she introduced the character or whatever. So you can start to see what these readers like, what they want in books. And that way it gives you an idea again of when you're writing, well, who is this person? This person didn't like this type of story. So that is not my ideal reader. So once you start writing to this one person that you start to narrow down, you start to create this person, right? This one person who you believe has all the qualities and is the person that you want to write to. You start writing to that person until you get your books out there and you start to get feedback from actual readers. And when you get the feedback from the actual readers, you will eventually meet your ideal person. And then you need to write to that person because now you know who exactly likes your book. Who is the person that would buy all the books that you write? What type of stories do they like? So it becomes sort of less important of like how old are they and where do they live and all that stuff, right? Because now you know and you understand that who exactly this person is. Now there are certain things about this person that you will you will want to know, right? So if this person is a mom and this is sort of her big identity, and you're writing stories that have children and have things, that one person that you're writing to represents the other readers that are just like her, right? So even though you're writing to this one person, you're writing to that group of people. So it's kind of weird, right? So we don't want to start out writing for a group of people. We want to write for that one person. But when we start writing for that one person, we're writing for a group of people like that one person. Okay. So as you go out there to find this reader, remember those 3 things, right? So join a writer's group that has a critique group connected to it. So if you don't find a writer's group that has a critique, find the critique group instead. Okay, find that critique group and start letting them read your book, your stories, your manuscript. The second thing is to go to conferences. Now, right now, I know that we're just kind of getting out of COVID and we're starting to get out there. So, it might not be today, but within the next few months, see if there's any writers groups out there. There could be some online too, but it's better to go. It's better to go in person and meet people in person. Okay, so find those writers, those readers, writers, find those readers and start to connect with them and start to meet them so that you can, not that you're particularly going to write for that one person yet, you're just starting to understand who they are and who likes your type of story, right? And the third thing is to go online, social media, and that one you can actually do right now, right? And start to join these groups, start to listen to what readers are saying, and start to try to make connections on what it is they like, and try to connect what you're writing to what that person is writing. Okay, so I wish you luck. And if you enjoyed this video, if you like this video, I have another video on actually getting to know yourself a little bit more. So go, and I think it's somewhere up here, and click on that video and watch that one. It's more of how to get to know yourself more as a writer. So the better we know ourselves as writers, the better we're going to be able to write, and the better we're going to be able to connect with our readers. Also, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video. And I'll see you next week.